Let me guess. Call. Yeah.
Oh wow, you're so in my head right now, man. I can't.
All right, here we go. We are going to be reviewing Charlie Carrel's deep run in the 5K scoop tournament. We're not going to be spoiler which place you ended, but it went quite deep. So you probably made it into the money. That's all we want to say here. But thanks for, of course, Charlie taking the time, and welcome.
Thanks. I guess you're doing the intro. We didn't say anything. We didn't organize that, but I guess it's yours. I'll do my own one. Thanks. Welcome, guys. What's up? Oh, it's the moment you've been waiting for. The collaboration of the century. No, it's I will say, and I said this to Ben just before we went live, that I didn't play much scoop, but when I did, I was like, you know what? I haven't been feeling great, but I'm just going to one table this. And throughout, I'd say 80% of the tournament, I had your YouTube playing some like deep runs that you had next to me to keep myself cognizant. And never before have I found a player who's got a YouTube channel that I can look at and be like, I understand what he's thinking and I like it. Never before. It's
I think we have a very, very similar style. So I take that as a huge compliment coming from you, man. Thank you so much. Great. So the first hand, Jack deuce off. I'm just going to be skipping through the first relevant hands. 7, 4, 6 suited.
Please get out of here.
What's happening?
Are you ever flatting this?
Yes.
Really, man? Yeah. You know this is a freeze out.
Mm-hmm.
Nah, man, you can't be flat. I love that we're going to disagree on hand fucking one. You can't be flatting this, and I'm saying this humbly because I'm not sure, but in my opinion, in a freeze out soft table, you can't be taking these marginal spots.
The reason why, and I think I've also seen a lot of solves where we want to be calling 5-3 suited, 4-6 suited, is, let's say it actually performs very often a little bit better than, let's say, 9-8 suited and 7-8 suited, because their range in terms of the card removal effects, they're going to have a lot of like pocket 7s, pocket 8s, pocket 9s, pocket 10s, and then also a lot of broadways, right? Like Jack 10, Queen 10. So it's actually really good with a 4 and a 6. You're going to be hitting trips and 2-pair more often than you would do with, let's say, a Jack 10 suited or 10-9 suited. Not saying I would fold Jack 10 suited, but it's not like that. And I'm not saying that 6-4 suited is not necessarily is worse than Jack 10 suited, but like if you take Jack 10 suited is here, like 4-6 you could be here, and it's like it's actually really close to Jack 10 suited, and we snap call Jack 10 suited here.
So I think that as this hand's history progresses, we'll probably see some discrepancies in how we play, just based on what you said.
Mm-hmm.
I agree that, I think this is plus chip EV for sure. If we flat here, especially, I think the opener is a recreational player, or at least not a super good reg, because I don't recognize him.
Yeah.
But because it's a freeze out, we don't get to rebuy. I'm going to be really just passing over the high variance marginal spots.
Yeah, but that's not high variance, right? Because you only
this isn't high variance, no. But this I would consider a marginal spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I would actually, and this is my logic. When we play against weaker opponents, we want to be defending more because we want to leverage the mistakes they make post-flop. So they make mistakes post-flop. So a marginal hand pre-flop actually becomes good because we benefit. If we hit a good hand, we're going to be paid out more often.
Yeah, it's probably really close. Okay, we can go to the next one.
Sure. You fold it. What hands would you be? Do just as a question, something that really I find it very interesting. Would you ever bluff squeeze in the spot, or you just be pure value?
I'd linearly squeeze this spot against, assuming that the opener's a recreational player, and given that we're in a freeze out, I don't want to be having too many like ace 5 suited, so I'd rather just flat them. Mm-hmm. So personally, I'd probably just start squeezing like ace jack off and those kind of hands, knowing that the recreational player is going to be making some mistakes and calling too wide pre-flop.
Okay.
And also knowing that Millennial is going to be 3-betting pretty heavy. Like he's going to be pretty value heavy with his 3-bets. So
yeah,
going to be making a lot of money with the high cards.
Mm-hmm. You would have flopped a bottom pair, man. In a
I would have
four-way
called
pot.
one.
That's what we're dreaming of, huh?
I'm so pleased that I folded that. You have no idea how happy, because I'm the least disciplined poker player I've ever met, apart from a couple of my students. And the fact that I folded that shows that even if you think it's an open, it shows from me that I was at least thinking. And I'm happy with it.
I think it's really close. In GTO, it's probably a mix, like 50% open, 50% fold, and then. But again, if it's a soft table, I think we should play more hands. That's
Yeah,
my
I
logic.
actually, in my opinion, when it's a soft table and it's no rebuy, we got to be playing more hands from some positions and a lot fewer hands from some. So we have two very good players in the blinds, and we're playing from early position. And what I've noticed is that bad players, what they do is that they don't pay attention to position or play much. So if they have ace 10 off, they're gonna play it whether you raise from under the gun or whether you raise from like cutoff. So what that means is that if you're playing on a table of bad players, say for instance, you want to be pretty tight under the gun because you've got loads of ace 10 offs to try and, or potential ace 10 offs to try and get through. But you can actually play really loose from late position because they're not going to be defending all their like 8-6 things like that.
Yeah, I see what you mean. And you need to look at both sides of the coin. If we say, okay, someone is calling ace 10 off, and let's say we don't want to be opening a queen jack off for that reason because we get more of these ace 6 calls, they're also going to be calling a jack 8 suited from hijack. Or I think at some point we reach certain hands, they're just too strong not to open them. Because
I'm not suggesting we fold ace king from under the guns.
no, but let's just say with the queen jack example, or maybe you have an ace 4 suited or an ace 6 suited and you want to fold it because you for that reasoning. I always like to then also see it from that point of view. Say, all right, if they call ace 10 off from under the gun +1, which they're supposed to fold, which hurts our EV, then I can also assume that there might be V pipping a 6-7 suited from MP, which is also not too bad. However, I agree with you. It's close. It's probably something you shouldn't at home like spend too much time on debating. I like the tight approach from under the gun. There's not a lot of money to be made in the first place, whether it's a soft or a tough table anyway. It's just the way poker works. There's so many cards left on the table or so many players left on the table. So I really like that approach. And I would say myself, I play tighter from under the gun than UTG. Then GTO. I was like, then UTG. Then GTO does. And I've been doing very, very well. And I would never say if someone here, I sometimes open Jack 10 off as well, depending on the table. It could probably be fine in certain circumstances as well. But for me, and this is something you can't prove mathematically, is like I like to push the variance in small pots. I like to play more hands if the table is soft. But when the pot gets big, I make crazy folds. Like I avoid marginal all-ins, marginal hero calls if it's a soft table.
Okay, so if anyone's taking notes, bluff Ben a lot in big pots.
You're welcome.
Only in big pots.
You're welcome to do so.
I will say that as a poker fan myself, I am really enjoying this already because I think that we're definitely approaching this from very similar perspectives, but we're probably weighting different concepts more than one another, which is for me fascinating.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's how you grow as a poker player, right? If you just sit together and everyone is agreeing, you're right, you're not going to be learning a lot. It also makes me rethink my own paradigms or beliefs I have about poker, right? Very disciplined forward here as well. I definitely see a lot of players being also way too stubborn with these off-suited high card hands, so...
I think that would just be a punt on this table.
Against, I also think so. Yeah. Even Queen 8 off is very marginal. Like I think I would go with Queen 10 off. And again, you can debate, okay, Queen 9 off might be fine as well, but
yeah, I'd probably go Queen 9.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Here we go. We're probably all right. Yeah. You ever flatting? There's a weak player in the big blind, I remember.
Yeah, I like these adjustments a lot. This is where we could say, first of all, even in GTO, you see some flat calling happening under certain circumstances with ace king, not an ICM, also in chip EV, especially with the offsuited combos. And I see your point here, right? You want to keep the variance small. You want to outgrind your opponents, right? You want to play small pots. If the money goes in, you want to have ace or kings. You want to have them dominated. So, and if there's a a weak opponent in the big blind, I definitely like it. Like, they might be calling too many offsuited king X, too many offsuited ace or also queen X hands, which we don't mind. So I definitely see.
For me, especially coming from like a live background where say you're playing like a 5K main event, your whole there's no re-entry. Your whole strategy has to just be like play low variance and wait for somebody to punt off 100 big blinds to you.
Yeah.
And so the better the structure and the softer the table, the lower variance you want to be playing.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Now, some people might wonder, that's not the Charlie Carrel I know. We all see these crazy hands, but you also need to distinguish between a soft tournament and a 25K tournament where you just battle with a lot of regs and you have to take more margin spots, right? Or how do you see it?
Yeah, it's the most frustrating thing when I have memories of sitting like a 5K main and a reg just starts 3-betting me loads in position or out position against me. And multiple times I've just said like, hey brother, look around. I'm not the person you want to be 3-betting and playing a big pot with. I promise. I'm going to start playing back. I will, because I can't let you keep doing this. But I don't want to play a big pot against you. You don't want to play a big pot against me. Let's just try and enjoy this ride together, because there's like 7 recreational players around.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wouldn't say it that explicitly so everyone else heard it like that, but it's like that kind of concept that you don't want to be playing big pots against good players when they're capable of making good calls and playing well.
Yeah, that's a big issue for a lot of players, especially when they try to move up. It feels like, I need to outplay now the high stakes tracks. I'm like, no, there's still a bunch of weak opponents. You want to focus on that. It's not who has the biggest deck on the table. And that's unfortunately a problem for a lot of players.
All right, so he checks. And how are you playing your betting range here?
I just look at my hand. I see I have top pair, top kicker. I ask myself, how many streets of value do I have? What does he do with queens, jacks, 1 diamond? What does he do with ace 10, ace and diamonds? Does he call 2 bets? Even big bets? Yes, I bet big flop, I bet big turn, and I check back the river.
Yeah. So usually I'd bet here, and I think I checked. And I'm not 100% sure why I checked, honestly.
He can have like king nine in clubs, pot control. You can have loads of bluffs perceived, right?
He can have so much stuff like 7s with a diamond that they're going to be pulling.
Yeah.
I think I was probably just going for like a check back, bet big turn, and then bet big river.
Even jack, and I think if people have jack 10 and hearts, you're just supposed to pure fold that against the step, because everything that we're betting just has so much equity, and you're drawing that against the value hand. So I think if you bet half pot or like 2/3 pots, people are like, I call once, you can have ace queen, ace jack, but like, yeah, but even that has a lot of equity. Or you bluff with pocket 4s, 1 diamond, or these kind of hands. So
would you bet something like 2/3 on the flop?
Yeah,
I'd bet like a quarter.
Yeah, but again, I just want to, like, how much value does my hand have? And also the fact people do not make reasonable folds, even if they have queens without a diamond. I think they call once. There are just so many hands that you're supposed to fold, they call once regardless. And
I like your strategy as well. I think I can see arguments for both.
Yeah.
Personally, I like to in these kind of spots because people play so face up. If you stab a quarter here, there's no way they're check calling like ace queen of diamonds anymore. They're just like, okay, fuck it, I raise.
Of course, it makes sense.
What I like to do is I like to cap my opponent's ranges a lot, and then just go bigger on later streets. And it's weird as well as like an overall macro strategy against regs. Playing a small betting range on flops, it really lowers the variance in comparison to like if you take some spots and like Jack 10-3 button versus big blinds, GTO is going to tell you to 2x pot that flop a lot.
Yeah.
Whereas if you take a higher betting frequency with a smaller bet size, in the long run, you just play really low variance, and then that helps with the ICM things.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we'll probably generate the same amount of value if you go for small bet flop and then you go for the pot over bet on the turn. Like I go 2/3 pot, turn and flop, and at the end of the day, we're going to be making the same amount of money, right? And you might gather more information because since you bet small, he's never going to have the nut flushes in his range. You could potentially then maybe on a safe river go for another value bet because he's never going to have these small flushes or these flushes in his range, right? So again, here, this is just a matter of.
And here again, it's a spot where I'd usually call, but something just felt a bit value about his timing. So I was like, I'm a field player at heart. So
I think he can value bet king jack, king queen maybe. We just bet so many diamond hands. Like the problem is the way our range looks. Like we don't have many offsuit combos. We don't have ace 10, ace in diamonds, or queen 10, queen in diamonds, right? But we have all the ace 10, queen 10, jack 10 combos. And so if he has like an ace king or king queen or he could just block bet against that.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, I know in the moment I wasn't thinking about king 10, king jack, king queen. So I can see this definitely being a call. But he just bet so quickly that I was just like, a bluff at least thinks about what size to go there.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Oh,
this is a spicy one, I think.
You call standard for
no, I mean, sometimes, honestly, I can see pretty good reasons for all three of them.
Yeah.
Like check raise makes some sense for protection value, and you've also got boat outs. Check call makes sense because he's bet small and, we're just ahead a decent amount. And fold also makes some sense because it's hard to win the hand.
I don't think we can check fold with the back to flush.
I would never check fold, but I can see arguments for it. What's your normal?
I really like the check raise here. I think if he has something like jack 9 diamonds, he's supposed to defend that against the raise, or like ace, like pure defend. And I think people would start folding it once in a while, which really helps us with the check raise, I think. But again, it's probably really marginal. And everyone that is listening, like everything is marginal, but that's just how it is very often in poker.
Yeah, the thing is, it might not even be marginal. It might be like really good to do one thing, really not so good to do the other. We don't know.
Yeah.
So from our perspective, at least, it's marginal. What do you do here? Try and say what you do before you see what I do.
Yeah. I would still tell you what I would do. I would also.
Yeah, I believe you, but so everyone at home knows.
I would bet 15,000 chips. What a surprise! No, I would. I like pot over bet. It's for me. Then in the moment, sometimes you just have a feeling, okay, bigger over bet is a little better, or pot size. I just think he's going to have loads of jack 10s, queen jacks that are supposed to barrel the turn, which he doesn't. So it's really good to be very aggressive in that node.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. For me, even if we have the spade blocker.
Against a reg, I'd much rather overbet the spot, because I think versus pot, people start convincing themselves they have, and they might be right, they have to start calling some ace-x. And I think people just pure fold ace-x versus overbet usually.
No, I like it a lot. And I cannot argue with that. Very well played. Call the ace check off.
I'll give you a hint on this one. Don't skip the flop. Don't assume anything.
I like the call. With that stack size, I like to be more suited. I just think it plays so much easier in 3-bet pots. Like ace check suited, ace 10 suited, like 3-betting those combos so much better. I definitely see reasons for 3-betting this as well, for obvious reasons.
I would 3-bet in a rebuy, and I'd call in a non-rebuy usually.
Oh, how?
Not to assume anything. What do you think?
I think a lot of the V with ace jack comes from him betting something like ace 8 in hearts, or ace 10 in spades, which we have crushed, which he would fold against such a sizing. We're also betting into an uncapped range here. He doesn't have a lot of offsuited 2 pairs. Like, I just think that, first of all, I don't think people would believe you that you would do that with sets. You might do it, but I just think people will be like, nah, he's never doing it with sets.
So if somebody were to...
I believe you are capable to do that, though.
If somebody were to do this into me, I would assume that they're like some 7/8s, some flush draws, and some sets.
Yeah.
Again, with a big size. So if you look at solvers, which I haven't done, but in a bunch of these spots where it's small blind versus big blind versus button, you can make a ton of money from leading as the small blind, because first of all, you're sandwiching the big blinds, and then the button, it's just one person. You're actually kind of sometimes losing EV against him, but making EV against the big blinds. So my strategy in this spot, I thought about it afterwards and actually spoke to a friend about it as well, would be to go big with bluffs and then lead sets small. Knowing that, it doesn't matter to be balanced, this spot's never going to come up again. But imagine you're like DeRoggio here sitting there with like king deuce, king four. When I'm leading 3/4 pot into you, you're just like, it's already a rough spot with near the top of your range, given how many hands are just going to be complete misses. So he's going to have some king five, some ace, ace seven, stuff like that might be continuing versus thirds, or might be getting there if it checks rounds. So I think we're just putting him in such a gross spot. Then we just need Millennial to not have a hand. And if he does, we got spades, we got overcards, and I don't see people playing back versus this very often anyway.
At the end of the day, if you would look it up, I'm pretty sure it's a profitable bet. So I'm not going to start arguing like, hey, you made a mistake here, when the solver was actually telling you you should be checking it. But it could still, this is the problem, what most people don't understand, that it could still be a profitable bet, yet the solver wants you to check, right? Because you will struggle with some of the other hands in your range.
Yeah, like how the hell are you meant to balance this well?
Yeah,
it's impossible.
Exactly. But as long as this is not being punished, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And how many regs are put in this spot into POSOP where they're having the small blind lead 78%?
Yeah. I have looked into it. It's actually happening quite often. Not particularly sure on 6 deuce 4 because it's a very, if I think about all the bots I want to study, maybe 6 deuce 4 is like right on the bottom. I might look into
you might have like the big blind. You might look at big blind leading this board, but nobody ever looks at the small blind leading. I don't think
he doesn't have enough 2 pairs. I think offsuited combos. If it would be more like 7 5 3.
Does he not defend 5-3 off?
Yeah, but he doesn't defend 6 deuce off. He doesn't defend 4.
He's the only person that has 5-3.
Yeah, but still he doesn't. He doesn't have.
I'll wager a bet, knowing nothing about Pio Solver, that he leads some in that spot.
I think Pio doesn't do multi-way. You need to look it up in Monka Solver, and I don't think he has enough 2 pairs to do so, because he also has all the sets and very high equity hands. Yes, he has a straight, so he probably gets to. The problem is he just has too much crap. He has like 9-7 off, which none of us has. That's the problem. It's like if he starts leading his strong hands, we small blind and button just print with their bluffs. Like we just increase our EV, and that's what he wants to avoid. But again, if it's not being punished, like it should probably also be fine for him having a leading range. And I also like to do that a lot when I sense there's someone passive, or you have stats. There's a regular that has a very low c-bet frequency, or a very passive recreation, especially deeper in the tournament. And there's like this 10-9-5 board, and I know he's checking back his king queens, he's checking back his king jacks. I have 10-9, I just pot it into him, or like at least bet into him.
I don't use a HUD, by the way. So
you're a human HUD.
Yeah. Luckily, I've got a photographic memory, so I don't need it.
And I mean, it's really important that people understand that, because I see also the discussions sometimes we have in our community, when people like spend hours and hours in solves in figuring out these kind of spots. It's like, guys, especially when you're at the beginning of the career, there's 3 in other spots where with a little bit of effort you make such a huge improvement. Right?
Yeah,
we are now here. I don't want to say, we're the best players in the world, but we have made it to where we can comfortably grind and we make money and we're going to be fine. And we have the time now to cherry pick on these spots. But if you study at home, you want to be studying those ICM spots. You want to be studying those short stack spots that really matter, where there's a lot of money at stake. Maybe a big pot where you bluff catch, really thinking, what can he bluff? These are the spots that matter, and not, do I see bet 1/4? Do I see bet 20% pot? Should I be leading here or not?
Yeah. I think selective studying is so important, and like knowing what's good to study and what's not. And there's no correct answer. Like nobody knows what's best, but you can at least listen to the people that are successful and be like, hey, what do I need to know? And almost no top players will probably, I'd like to think no top players would say, okay, just study the solvers. They'd probably point more towards the macro things to be looking at.
Yeah.
Ever squeezing?
I think it's pretty sexy because Small Blind is calling all his, like, the reason why I really like it is like, first of all, we fold a bunch of queen 10 out of his range. But if he folds, like, we get to play such a high EV spot against him. He's going to be calling 7s to deuces against our squeeze. Like, with that stack size, I would say people call that. And also some, like, ace 9 suited, ace 7 suited, which is not too bad. Yeah, I definitely... Of course, there are downsides, he can 4-bet, and we have to fold our hand, or maybe we level ourselves into 5-bet jamming because he's fucking around, and we're out of the tournament, but...
No, I can see arguments for it. Again, it's one of those things that I personally, I think in a non-rebuy, it's a punt to kind of take high variance in those spots, but I can see arguments for it, for sure.
Calling, raising?
Usually just calling, yeah.
What do you think? What would you do with 4s or 5s? Let's say if pocket 4s or pocket 5s or an ace deuce, ace 3 type of hand.
I'll just call again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's like one of those spots where I think that someone has a king a decent amount, or somebody has a flush for a decent amount, and to really justify a pretty wide flop raise here, I think that you have to be able to make people fold things on later streets. And it's hard to make people fold top pair these days. People really underfold top pair. So I'm not going for these huge bluffs.
Sorry, go ahead. No.
It's not technically a bluff, but I mean, like, assuming somebody calls when you have pocket 4s and you've raised this flop, you're suddenly in a spot where you pretty much have to bluff the turn. Like, it's hard to win the hand otherwise.
I was just thinking more that it might already be profitable or better play raising. Like, if we have pocket 4s, Small Blind is going to be folding. He's still going to have 9s to pocket 5s, right? Or like pocket 8s to pocket 5s. That's like his main calling range. And then he's going to have a bunch of queen jack diamonds, jack 10 diamonds, ace 10 diamonds.
And like king 10 off, king jack off, stuff like that.
Yeah, he certainly has, but I'm not trying to target the king. I'm not trying to make him fold. Sure. I just want to protect. I fold out some better hands, which he will fold. And actually, if he has ace deuce, ace 3, he's probably more likely to be calling than, let's say, pocket 5s, because he has some outs, right? And he blocks some value. A button can still be c-betting everything. So, and if we raise to, let's say, 10 or 11k, we invest 11k into like 15k, and it doesn't need to work a lot. And
if I thought the button was way over c-betting, then I'd go crazy, check raising the spot. But I don't think he will over c-bet the spot too much.
You really think so? I actually think people would c-bet this a lot. King deuce 3,
Maybe tournament players, maybe right.
Yeah.
Playing too much cash.
I think tournament players would c-bet. And it's not bad. Like, it's not that we both have a lot here. And button has ace king, king queen. We're supposed to be squeezing a lot of these hands as well. He has also all sets. He's opening king deuce, king 3 suited as well. Small Blind never has king deuce or king 3 suited in his range. So I think he can be quite aggressive on this board, given its mighty way. But yeah, pocket 8s, I think, where we dominate his pocket 7s to pocket 4s. We don't really want to raising it. Interesting.
Doesn't this suck already?
Yeah, I think we just still get to call. He can still be leading like 5s for thin bet. I think it's a really smart bet with pocket 5s against our deuce x and 3x. He can be really still full of shit. I like it. I actually like it.
Yeah,
just
me too.
To freeze the action. We just get to call. Oh,
did fold it. Yeah. I guess in game I didn't think that he had 5s in his range, so I thought that he just had a bunch of king x, like a bunch of king x, and then some flush draws. And I don't like the fold. Yeah, fair enough.
But apparently you were right, because now, or he rolled the 4s.
Yeah, I don't know. It might be one of those spots where I just felt like he was king x heavy, but no. I
definitely see myself there sometimes folding in game, especially when you play a long session. You're not right here we didn't play. We're fully there. We see everything. So it's so much easier in a review. But
I can honestly see the fold being fine if you think that he's more king X heavy than something and than not, and if you think the button's c betting not as wide as it might be, then it's probably a good fold. But with the assumptions that I think I have now, probably cool.
Yeah.
Again, I get it in a rebuy. I'm 3-betting this most of the time. In a freeze, I'm just calling this 100%.
Yeah. I really like the way you approach freeze outs. I just think you push it a little tiny bit too far. I think here and there you might miss some.
I don't think so. I honestly don't. So I think 3-betting this would just be a punt in a freeze out. And obviously we can disagree on that. And I'm not claiming to definitely be right. But I mean, playing nines out of position in a 3-bet pot is tough. It's not an easy hand to play because there's so many overcards that come. And when I'm playing against a very good player, I don't want to be playing those spots when I can be playing other ones. And it's not like we're losing chips by calling out the small blind. It's like a really, really nice spot still. What do you do here?
Just call. I mean, according to your logic, right? We don't want to push the variance, and then pushing would be, and in his bluffs, mostly going to be very polarized from the big blinds, like an ace-5 off or a king-4 suited type of hand. So we just call. And it mostly plays very easy with this hand. Either they're going to be a bunch of overcards. We still can check jam on a, let's say if the board is 8 high or even like 10-5 deuce, we can potentially think about a small check raise or check jam. I think we just print so much more money with this hand post flop.
Yeah, I jam.
You jam?
I prefer shove. Yeah, so it's one of those spots that's 30K in the middle already, and we're only shoving like an extra, fucking 85K or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's bad. It's totally fine. I think just nines is better calling.
Personally, yeah, I disagree. I think that we're just going to be following the best hand post lot too much. And it's a spot as well where I think a lot of people squeeze pretty wide, and as they should be. But I think probably...
Then you would also be shoving, let's say, your ace-5 suited here?
Probably not, but definitely my deuces, if I had deuces pre.
Because I think that an ace-5 is actually better than nines because we block a bunch of his bluffs with pocket nines. And he's never going to be calling pocket eights. He's going to be calling tens plus. And
but what do you think his calling range is against a 4-bet shove?
Tens plus, ace queen plus.
Yeah, maybe even ace jack plus because we flat out small blinds.
So then it's even better to have an ace because nines you just block so many bluffs. You don't block any value and you're...
I disagree. I think it's better to have nines because when we're all in, we have a lot more equity. Again, I might be wrong on that, but that's how I think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just don't think he calls ace jack. Like if he starts calling, squeeze calling ace jack here, where he's mostly just flipping.
Would you fold ace jack in that spot?
Yeah.
I'd call it. I just don't think people are flat in ace queen, so it's just in a real
I
nice
mean,
spot.
people wouldn't expect you to flat nines there, so
why
can you not have ace queen? You flatted ace king suited earlier.
I'm not saying I couldn't have ace queen. I wouldn't have ace queen, but if you were the big blind and you didn't know that some reg was in the small blind, what would you expect him to turn up with hit when he's shoving?
Well, mostly pairs.
Yeah, a lot of pairs, maybe some ace-5 suited, stuff like that. Maybe some king jack suited. So I'm definitely not folding ace jack.
Yeah, makes sense. I see your point. Yeah, if he starts calling ace jack as well, then nines is better because we have more equity than an ace-5 suited.
This is fun.
I still would prefer 3-betting pre-flop.
No worries.
But I think it's important, and I agree that people squeeze a lot in these days. So I think it's a good counter to just jam a lot. He folded, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he folded.
What is his sizing like, actually? Sometimes you can pick up on some crazy sizing tells as well.
Yeah, that some spots where people squeeze huge here, it's like eights, ace jack, and bluffs, like ace jack, ace queen, ace king, and bluffs. And some people just squeeze smaller with aces and kings, and fair enough.
It's good. It's good to see some different approaches for early game. Yeah, you 3-bet or call.
Probably folded this.
Wow. Okay.
It was a really soft table, if I remember correctly. Like, I think I'd seen a couple of ludicrous hands. So like Rimboto, Drew, and Ida, I think were all pretty bad recreational players. So I would usually flat this, but I think on this table specifically, I was like, I don't want to play these spots.
I don't think we could fold this hand. I think we just the amount of times we hit, and this is not even marginal. Like, this is just, even if there's like, I don't know, true teller opening, who's considered like a sicko post flop, I would still be flatting, because just decent amount of time you're going to be hitting something, and it's just a very profitable call. And in fact, we actually also
it's profitable chippy B, but I mean, how
ICM on this defend is not big.
But it's not even ICM. It's edge versus table, and in my opinion, the edge factor is one of the most undervalued factors when it comes to. And I'm not saying this is definitely correct fold, but my argument would be that people hugely underestimate how much it is to even have one recreational player on your table, in comparison, and then having 3 on your table is just insane. Like, you're making so many BB per 100 just by sitting there in the first place, that taking a high variance spot, let's say, I'm not arguing this is definitely the right play. Like, I'm really unsure. But taking a high variance spot where you're going to be check calling, say, second pair twice and folding river a bunch, you're going to be, you're going to be having a spot where to profitably play post flop, you're going to have to bluff a bunch. And it's just really high variance, or you're taking like the bottom of your range or middle of your range with second pair or third pair, and you're just losing a bit of your stack, in comparison to when you could just be playing, king queen off against a recreational player and just crushing him in pretty much every spot.
Yeah, I see your point. I just think that, and I agree that most players neglect edge. That's why poker is still so profitable, especially tournament poker. Even good players putting themselves into very, very marginal spots, but this is the spot. Even hands like 4-5 suited are just really, really good. I'm pretty sure that we're defending those hands even against the 2.5x open raise. So if he puts out the 4K open raise, now what's 2.5x? 2.8K. We get to defend all these 4-5, 6-5 suited here, because they just perform so well against the tight under the gun range.
Yeah, and I normally would, so I completely see what you're saying.
Yeah. And then if he goes like slightly over min raise, it's just because you force him also to call a hand like 9-3 suited or 8-5 suited. You of course, there's also a lot of hands you're behind against, but just 9-8 suited is a hand we don't mind playing multi-way.
Well, to quote a very real philosopher, I like to play small ball.
You like to what?
I like to play small ball poker.
But that's small ball poker. I mean, it's not that you push the variance. You just invest 1.5 big blinds to see a flop.
I was joking. I was just quoting D-Nex.
D-Nex is not playing small ball poker anymore.
Yeah, he's not. He's like,
no way. No, not even in tournaments.
He's like a wannabe GTO bot now. I fucking love it. I love to see it.
Helmuth is for me a small ball poker player in tournaments, which is good. That's why he probably also does well a lot of times.
I was watching some of the Helmuth versus Negrani heads up match today, and Helmuth, his live tells they're good. Like, he's actually really good at it, I think.
Picking up on live tails from others, you mean?
Yeah, I think he's got a lot more of an intuitive live read than perhaps other people, where they'll be looking for specific things and analyzing it and deducing what that means. I think he really just gets a feel for his opponents. But some of his like reverse live tells and everything like that, I think they were just on point.
Okay, so I haven't watched it. Yeah, Jack 10 off. We just get to fold.
Yeah, if you watch me play live, you'd probably really disagree with some of the plays that I make in high rollers.
I think live is just such a different game, man. Like, I would probably be open to everything, honestly. Like, it's just so, like, based from my little experience, from what I've seen, if you would put it into a solver, the output would be so different. And I think I'm pretty good. And okay, if I see someone is, flatting 6-5 off MP against another guy, like, if I have a fucking 8-4 suitor on the button, I'm going to be V-pipping it,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
So and this is also how I grew up in poker. Like, this is how I learned poker. So I don't have a difficulty to adjust to extreme anomalies or
Yeah,
very.
but I meant more like the folding ace-7 off to an open from like big blind versus mid position kind of thing. Like those kind of plays live, I've been making pretty much my whole career. And yeah, honestly, I think it's one of the biggest mistakes that regs are making and consistent is just playing all. It's like small pots, but they're just playing so many of them against each other, and then they take relatively high variance lines post. And there's just a guy waiting to donate 150 big blinds to him in a 100K tournament. Like, what are you doing 3x pot shoving versus Nick Petrangelo? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So yeah, I have a really, really different strategy to most poker players, and I'm definitely open to it being nowhere near optimal. But personally, I've had a lot of success with it.
I mean, ace-7 off against MP and under the gun ranges is probably quite much in the first place, and I've seen some solves, depends on the sizing though, but if he pulls out the 3x open or 2.5x open, it gets quite criminal, so...
Really? I didn't know. I guess 2.5x I would have thought is pure call against.
Yeah. Even against under the gun, these weak offsuited aces start folding. So,
cool. Good to know.
Just the equity realization is really bad for everyone that is watching. If you, for example, take an ace-6 off, it's 60-70% only. So, you might get like 18% in terms of the odds required to call, or like 20%, whatever, right? You min raise and see, like if we take here, if we go in the big blind, and you see someone opening, here you see 21%. Oh, great example. So let's take ace-6 off, if you put it in the equilab, ace-6 off versus a tight under the gun range, you might get, 37% equity, just a random number here. Or 35% equity, because it performs really bad, right? Like, we just crushed so often because this is a very ace-6 heavy range. But, and actually 60-70% is an over-exaggeration. I have seen a lot of simulations where it's like 50 to 60%. But you only get to realize half of it. So then your real equity is actually 17, 18%, 19%. So it's less than the odds that you get, right? So even if you have 40% with ace-6 off, and he chooses a bigger sizing, so we need 22, 23%, you see it's a minus EV defend. Because equity realization also considers the reverse implied odds. Because very often when we hit something, like something decent, like a top pair, we're going to be paying out a decent amount of the time, right? Like, if you hit a top pair and there's a lot of money in the middle, most of the time you end up losing it. It's just the way it is. So, yes. And you're barely going to be winning big pots with ace-6 off.
It's really cool hearing you say this, that you've obviously run some simulations and kind of like confirming what I have been doing anyway. And it was, I don't know if you played any high stakes live like 3 years ago. There was this
2 years ago
fanaticism around defending the big blind. Maybe even 2 years ago.
Yeah. But it was also online. It was crazy. It was online as well.
People would just be defending like in this spot, like
Jack deuce off. I've seen that shit.
I was literally going to say Jack deuce off, and they're even doing it on like final tables. Like, I saw some of the best players in the world doing that on final tables in spots where they're just like third in chips against the chip leader. And I was just like, I don't care what the solvers are saying. I literally I'm not going to listen. Just put my fingers in my ears, and I'm going to be playing fucking tight from these spots.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I think that now their solvers have told them like, okay, no, you didn't take that into account. Stop it, because people will stop doing it now.
It gets a little different when you're short, when you're 15, 20 big blinds, because the in-position player is just checking back, supposed to be checking back like all the middling boards, and just half of the boards is just, you get to see a free turn, which just really helps your equity realization. And when you hit something,
more,
but like 100 big blinds, 50 big blinds, 40 big blinds, you got to be very careful, and definitely big league in a lot of players' games. Man, I really like, because we got a good theme for this video. It's like Charlie versus Bencb on pre-flop debate for tournament poker, man. I love it. We got 11 more hands to go. Let's see. You're grinding the early game. Ace Queen. Let me guess. Call. Yeah.
Oh wow, you're so in my head right now, man. I can't.
But I like it. Like also with the big blind being an unknown.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think versus another gun range, it makes a lot of sense. And I think a solver also ace queen off for sure wants to be calling a lot of the time, and then ace queen suited just. Yeah.
Is that because you want to be calling a 4-bet with ace queen suited and not so much ace queen off?
No, for example, if you're under the gun with ace queen, you just want to be 3-betting it because everyone else like you 4-out 10-9 suited. It's just you just print because of protection. Here,
but why would you rather 3-bet suited than offsuit?
Because it has more equity in a 3-bet pot, and you just want to keep the pot small with an offsuited combo.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I would have thought it's so you can call a 4-bet. Nice and easy.
Calling a 4-bet? What do you mean?
So I mean, you much rather call a 4-bet with ace queen suited than you would with ace queen on.
Yeah, but what's the logic behind it? Because you flop more flush draws, it's so easy to play. You want to have easy to play hands in big pots, right?
Yeah. Same.
That's
same thing,
yeah, exactly. But people reverse. They're like, I want to be calling my suited hands because they play so nicely post flop, and they start 3-betting all these offsuited crap because they don't want to play post flop. But then they end up playing these big pots with like and king jack off or an ace 9 off. It's like, and then they wonder why I just keep losing these big pots, and losing 100 big blind pot. It's probably not going to happen a lot, but like if you do mistakes there, it just really hurts your win rate. Just the 100 big blinds gone, right?
Yeah.
Just from cash game, and that's really good if you play a lot of cash game. Like how a 100 big blind pot can fuck up your day.
Yeah, if you make one mistake in 100 big blind pot, you're just like, I could be 2k up and 2k down. Out of interest, what's your poker background? I started with online cash, like a few million hands probably. What was yours?
Sin goes, just grinding the short stack. Turbo sin goes, hyper sin goes, lots of ICM.
People used to suck ICM as well. You must be making a lot.
It was when I transisted. I really struggled in the early game because adjusting to like 80 big blinds, 70 big blinds, I was very comfortable 50 big blinds and less. What you play in sin goes, and with ICM, short stack, reshoving, calling all-ins. I had a very good intuition for that. But it took me some time to get used to it. I also like to play cash games, so it was not that difficult, but like just adjusting to the tournament meta was not so easy.
What do you recommend to new players? Personally, whenever somebody's just starting, I always say play 2NL Zoom, because then you get the post flop play and you get the deep stack play and you get to practice all of these things. What do you say?
Yeah, I would recommend also like, sit and goes a lot of the time, or multi-table sit and goes. Just low stakes, micro stakes. They're incredible soft. Just play super, super tight. Just get a feel to playing with money. It's just also something you need to get used to it. So you want to start playing something, and it's literally just play fucking tight. It's really just, hey, you wait for a good hand, you pile in as much as money as possible. When you get short, you just play push or fold, rejam. This was back then like the main strategy, and it worked really well. And for micro stakes and low stakes, it also works really well. You can start building a small bankroll, start getting used to these short stakes, and then perhaps I would advise to mix in some cash games, or you start with turbo sit and goes, where you also play 50 big blinds, 60, 75 big blind poker, and get familiar with a few more post-up concepts. But that would be my advice. You would advise to play at a 2 cent?
Yeah, so personally, I think that it's the best thing that somebody can do is play as many hands as possible, deep stack poker, make all the mistakes, make loads and loads and loads of mistakes, and then add in some structure from your coach as you go. And I think it's a lot easier to transition from cash games to tournaments than it is from tournaments to cash games, or cash games to singos than it is singos to cash games.
Yep.
So in this spot on are you checking back the flop always with ace queen?
Yeah, I just don't see.
I probably stab more than GTO would tell me to, just because I think stake is going to be c-betting more value hands than GTO would say, because the big blind's a recreational player.
Yeah.
And if the big blind does call, I'm just like, hey, I'm just going to win this hand. Unless you have 2-pair plus, I'm just going to win this hand. Trust me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd probably stab, but ace queen I think just has enough showdown for me.
Very interesting play on the turn. What's your reasoning behind that?
So I would expect Rimbotta to bet anything that is willing to call this bet. I think this is a spot where recreational players play really face up when it's gone check, 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 and the board's kind of wet. So he wants to go for protection with his king tens, etc. Even his like 6-5s, things like that. I think you just see a small bet pretty much always. And Stake Addict, I think, is just super capped at this point because the recreational player is, he's going to be the target for value hands, and he's probably just going to be betting even fucking like 9s here on the turn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I kind of like it. I think, don't you think 13K would do the same?
I personally didn't think so, and maybe it would, but I thought that if I bet 13K, then I might just get like Ace King hero called from Stake, or I might get, like Deuce X hero called from Robotta. So who knows? But personally, I thought overbet was better.
Yeah. I can't really say too much because it's not something I would do a lot of the times in my game, and I can definitely see your reasoning, and I can't disagree with it.
Cool.
It's definitely something I also need to start doing more when there's a recreational and just, okay, how would he play it? If you can eradicate one unknown from the equation, basically, okay, we know exactly what, not exactly, but we have a good idea of what he would do with his range and how he responds against an overbet. Like, we can basically take him out of the equation. Now it's just, okay, how does Stake Addict his plays range?
Yeah,
right?
and it's almost better because it looks stronger into 2 people.
Mm-hmm.
So there are actually a bunch of spots, including when you have live tell some people, where it looks really strong because you're c-betting into 3 people, but your live tell has told you that 2 of them have missed. Yeah. So it's...
Yeah. Poker Kings, nice little cooler, so to speak. Queen Jack suited is going to be an open.
I wish I'd folded just to see your face.
Yeah, that's not too fancy. And we got the last hand, do 7. Maybe we see some. Oh, we actually get to see some.
Ooh.
No.
No.
Great. I mean, that was some spicy stuff.
I'm actually quite impressed how many weird spots came up in the first 55 hands. Like how many unorthodox plays I managed to get out there, because it's that's probably higher on the distribution of unorthodoxy than normal.
People are gonna love it. I also loved it, so I really enjoyed it. But we're gonna be back with a few more parts mid-game. We're also then going to be highly focusing on the final table. Some of the parts going to be on this channel. Some of the parts going to be on your channel. So make sure also to follow your YouTube channel, Charlie Carrel. Correct me if I'm wrong. And so you don't miss out on any of these parts. And also, surely one of the final tables we're going to be posting on this YouTube channel. So make sure to subscribe if you liked it, to also like, so you're not going to be missing out on these very, very valuable parts, as you've seen. And that's going to be, it's going to be intense, man. It might be... we should maybe put on some protectors and gloves for the final table part when the concepts are getting a little more in-depth.
Get the plexiglass up. Protects you from anything. That's it.
Great. Charlie, thank you so much for joining. And if you guys have any questions, don't forget to drop it in the comments. We get back to you. And then see you guys in the next part. Thank you, Charlie, once again. Bye-bye.